Better offense. Let me just take a look here. Just give me a second. I'm going to go with the Yankees.
Yeah. So the one thing, like the first thing, they don't, Mike Petriello tweeted about this today. You think, Yankees strike out a ton and Guardians never strike out. I mean, obviously, there's certainly some real whiff in this lineup, but, the Yankees still were top 10 in strikeout percentage during the regular season. And yeah, the Guardians were fourth, but they're not far and away the best in the way they have been in the past. And the real difference is not just in the slug, because as I mentioned, it's not as ridiculous because Cleveland now does have some guys that can hit the ball over the fence, but it's in the on base. I mean, Cleveland just doesn't draw walks. They chase a ton. They don't hit the ball particularly hard. And what Cleveland, we say offense, I mean, if you broaden it to just like the position player group, their only hope is to really narrow the gap with base running and with defense, right? That is where Cleveland, excels in general and certainly can excel relative to the Yankees. But obviously the Yankees are just they're able to just be on base a lot and then hit the ball over the fence. And that has been a strategy that is sometimes not the most pleasant kind of offense to watch, but it has been fairly effective over the course of the season.
Walk, bomb, walk, double, walk, bomb. It works if you do it. Yeah. Watching Cleveland play offense is fun. Cleveland is a better college baseball program. However, the Yankees have a better lineup. How about that? How do you feel about this outrageous take? Cleveland, better offense. Yankees, better lineup.
Ooh,
don't believe that.
This is good. This is good podcast fodder. Yeah, I don't know. I guess my main point is yes, the ceiling for this Yankees offense is still so much higher. And if you're going to get performances from Stanton, again, we still haven't seen that much from Jazz. Wells was extremely quiet against the Royals. But there's not quite to the Dodgers level, but there's just more guys that if you make a mistake, they're just going to punish you, which is most relevant because of how different that is compared to, respectfully, the Tigers of Detroit, right? This, you could just get away with so much more against an offense of Detroit's caliber than you can against the Yankees. And to me, it's that simple. It's not to discredit how good the Cleveland pitching staff is, which we can get into here in a second, but that's really how I see it, as much as specifically comparing New York and Cleveland. It's just a lot smaller margin for error.
If you like Jonathan Holstaff, then boy, you're going to love watching the Gardos try and find some outs. I think we need to name another person. Like, we have Johnny Holstaff as a pitcher. The Guardians need another guy.
Because they're doing it more than once.
Rick Everybody Available Steen or something. All hands on Dekowitz. I don't know.
I mean, listen, let's get into the pitching. All right.
Bob Everybody.
So we are going to see Carlos Rodon against Alex Cobb in game 1. That is confirmed. Alex Cobb, who has pitched more than Kodai Senga, but not that much more than Kodai Senga, as he was coming back from hip surgery. The Guardians traded for him, and then he made a couple starts, was dealing with blisters and a fingernail thing, and he came back and pitched very briefly against the Tigers, but they trust him. He is a veteran, and he, in theory, can give them some amount of length. He will go against Carlos Rodon, who, of course, we talked about how his game to start went against the Royals, which was very good for 2 innings and very not good after that. But otherwise, then we have what is really, I'm glad we are getting, which is Gerrit Cole versus Tanner Bybee. And I will say that I do think Tanner Bybee is just being underrated in general, just across all of the discussions of Cleveland. I think he's been awesome for about 2 months now, and I think that he's given them exactly what you could have possibly asked him to do at every turn over the last 6 weeks. And is he better than Gerrit Cole? No, but he has not faced the Yankees this year. He faced them, I think, in his second career start last year. So there's not going to be too much familiarity there. Some of these guys have seen him. I know it'll be in New York. And like I said, this Yankees lineup can beat anybody. But I think Bybee is good. I think Bybee's a really, really good starting pitcher. And I don't think he deserves to be glossed over in this collective unit.
I'm going to gloss over him a little bit here, because the difference between him and what the Yankees have is the lack of length. So Bybee in his 2 postseason starts went 4 and 4 2/3. He threw 64 pitches and 76 pitches. Now, part of that is just because the Guardians
it's by design. I mean, that's the thing.
Pull the plug and send the bullpen out, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, you would always rather have the pitchers who are going to give you more innings, and the Yankees definitely have that with Cole. They probably have that with Schmidt. I don't know what the heck Carlos is going to be tomorrow. Let
alone Luis Gil in Game 4. So
yes.
I hear what you're saying. I just think the Bybee thing's much more been by design, by what he's capable of doing. But either way, yeah, the main, if we're skipping ahead to X factors and just like what is interesting about this, and I wrote a little bit about this for the ALCS preview, which you can read on Yahoo. Like on paper, the Guardians bullpen is certainly more formidable. The ceiling, the depth, the number of guys that have ERAs under 2 over the course of the regular season. It was really funny when, they're forced to go to Eli Morgan there in Game 5, and it's like, oh God, they have to go to Eli Morgan, and then they flash his numbers up there, and he's got a 1.6 and like 40 innings, and it's like, yeah, he's pretty good too. So, they have so many of these guys. That the Yankees should have to rely on their bullpen less, but can the bullpen be as good as it was against Kansas City, where they didn't allow an earned run? Possibly. But if they get exposed more, how does that work out? Cleveland, of course, they leaned on them so heavily against Detroit, and they barely got by. When they needed the outs, they did have them, even though they did have a few hiccups there with Clase. Even Kate Smith Gaddis had a couple shaky moments. So I think that the gap is a little bit closer than you might assume going into it, but it's just going to be about the proportion of innings that they're relying on the bullpen for both of those teams. Because as great as Holmes and Weaver and even Tim Hill have generally been, over the last couple of months, and then Canely, there's still not as many guys where if you do have a blow up start from Heel or Carlos again, you might run into some issues in terms of the Yankees trying to patch it through as well.
I'm a little surprised. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, wow, Cleveland uses their bullpen more. I mean, their bullpen threw 10 more innings in their series than the Yankees bullpen.
No, they played another game.
Then they played another game. But like the Yankees, again, they just didn't allow an earned run. So let me ask you this question, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. Obviously, we would rather have the Yankees rotation. I think it's closer than you might think, or than not you might think, but then some people might think. But obviously, you'd rather take the Guardians bullpen. Whose pitching would you rather have? If you could just have all of the pitchers from either of these teams.
I think Yankees slightly, because I do agree with you that the length and just the value of being able to get a 7-inning outing from a starter, which I think Tanner Bybee is capable of. I just don't even think they're going to let him. It's just, Vogt has said this over and over. I mean, he said this when he takes out Boyd after 2 innings. He said, listen, we've won with our bullpen our whole year. We're not going to change the recipe now, even if we do, trust these starters. So, well, I do think Bybee could do that. The fact that Cole is more likely to actually make that happen. I think Schmidt, Heel, and Carlos are obviously enough wild cards that, maybe it does end up being a little shakier, and maybe that is why you lean Cleveland. And by the way, the other name that I just have to mention, Boyd's been really good, but Gavin Williams is the one pitcher on Cleveland's staff that did not pitch in the previous round. He has obviously been a starter and someone who, former first-round pick, who they believed in. It's just so volatile over the course of this regular season. Of course, was dealing with injuries in the first half, but he was just alternating great starts and disastrous starts to the point where they clearly just didn't necessarily trust him. And coming into the season, into that series against Detroit, they said he was going to come out of the bullpen. Could he still be an option to give them multiple innings, either in a start or in a bulk role in relief? He's someone I am really curious about in a longer series if he does, get some run there. But what do you think? Are you still leaning Cleveland on the whole?
Well, so I think the X factor is Carlos, because he looked so good for it was 2 innings, 3 innings, and then just completely went off the rails. What are we getting from him? Because he's going to probably start 2 games, right? If he's starting game 1, he's also going to start game 5. The odds of this going 5 are very high. And the Yankees can't afford to just have him bomb out the way he did last time. So I think how he comes out and performs in the first game, the tone that he sets is going to be really important. I think I'm going to take the Yankees, and I think I'll take the Yankees in 6.
Yeah. I went Yankees in 7. But I mean, this is going to be good. I think Cleveland has, Kwan is just, he is really, really something special. And I'm still not sure we've seen the best of Ramírez. That's the last note I'll just put here, is that Ramírez has owned Gerrit Cole, not quite to Devers level, but if you look at the guys that Gerrit Cole's faced, 30 plus times in his career, the second best OPS after Rafael Devers is José Ramírez. And so he will have the opportunity, to make a statement and to put his impact on this series. But we mentioned the depth of the bottom of the lineup. That's another thing that we just did not see from Cleveland, especially that middle portion. That really both nailers. Noel has just done nothing. Some signs of life from Jimenez and Rocchio in that game 5, but otherwise, that's where they become a little bit more pitchable. And we saw, the Yankees take advantage of lineups like that is against Kansas City. So I could definitely see them doing that again. And that's ultimately why I am picking them in 7.